Good Monday evening, everybody. I know that a lot of people had asked if we were doing lives yesterday. We decided not to. The reason why we're not going to do any more lives is because there are too many people out there who are twisting our words and our truths to something that's not real. And most of you guys know who this person is or persons. I don't have to, say names. A couple of them created a Discord site to speak to me off the books or off camera or whatever you want to call it. But the moment they realized that I was not going to listen to them or follow their demands, because that's what it felt like towards the end, they canceled the channel. Which is fine, Danny. It's fine, Danny. That's their choice. They weren't really helping me. They were actually making things a little bit more confusing for me to make my own decisions. Now I've made my own decisions. There's going to be no separation. There's not going to be any divorce or any of that negative crap that goes against my moral compass. And if you don't like my moral compass, that's probably because yours is already screwed up to the point where you can't even fix it and you're trying to destroy somebody else's. I don't know, and I really don't care. Now, this is my life. I get to choose how to live it. And if people do not like it, that's their problem, not mine. I'm not here to live by somebody else's standard or to live my life the way they want me to. Jerry has never fully controlled me. I don't know where people get that. What I do with Jerry's requests and whatnot is up to me. Now, I've never said this to anybody because I never thought about it until recently. I never thought I could be a caretaker. A caretaker is somebody who is loving, giving, and does not think about themselves until after hours or whatever. I've talked to Jerry about this, and Jerry does not want that from me. Jerry wants me to be able to do what I want to do. Granted, there are certain, there are certain areas that I have to realize that even though I might be in the middle of a project, Jerry may ask me for something that has a timeline because of its importance. When she tells me that that I need it done now because I don't have enough time or whatever it is she wants me to do, needs an answer as soon as possible, and a lot of you think it's her making demands, unreasonable demands on my time and my life. No. She's offered many times to do the dishes, and basically I'm thinking about taking her up on that because the idea is, since we have a tall patio chair inside the house where Jerry can sit on it and do some prep work or cooking and whatnot, which we've done. Actually, I think next time we're going to do work together at prep work, I'm going to show you where she does it, if she does it there. Yes, the house needs a lot of work still, and yes, her way of doing things is going into a room, clearing out whatever whatever may be in her way or whatnot, and then slowly but surely bring it back in if it goes back in that room, or just leave it in a what we're now calling a staging area. And I don't mind doing that, but when it comes to my stuff, I'm gonna do it my way. Whether I ask her for some simple advice or not, I'm gonna do it my way. Jerry Ann and I did talk about mom's side of the house, and we did some not real measurements, but like guesstimations. And I mean, her side of the house we can basically turn into our apartment because we only need 2 rooms. The bedroom is big enough for all our bedroom stuff and then some. the room that mom was using is big enough for my office and then some. And we were talking, well, I was talking, not we, I was talking about the possibility of taking the room with the bay window and turning it into my office plus craft room or mini greenhouse for window plants. Now, unfortunately, I did not learn enough to, I don't know if they're still alive or not. The mint practically died. The bay leaves or basil, I think it was, I think they're dead. The rosemary is starting to die, and I'm doing everything I can. I think what I need to do is start watching more YouTube channels with gardening information. I know that the one app I had, which I didn't like towards the end because when the plant started dying, it couldn't. One of the things they said, oh yeah, that's marijuana, and the other thing they said it was something totally different than what I know what they were, and I was just kind of like, what the, you know. But I'm not going to give up on the idea of growing herbs and vegetables and, you know, produce that we eat on a regular, and it's kind of getting very expensive. That's why the one piece of property that I saw that, by the looks of it, if our credit wasn't, you know, messed up, there's this place out in Salem, Missouri, which is like maybe 30 minutes away from Rolla. And it's 2.8 acres of land with a pre-designated gardening slot and a gardening spot and planter's room or workshop or whatnot. And then it's got enough room for like a tiny house or a trailer or something like that, which to be honestly with you, I mean, the house is about as big as this place. Is, you know, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, or 5 bedroom, 3 bath. Looks like all the rooms are very nice, spacious rooms. Like 2 or 3 carports. In the back lot, it looks like it has like a tree line with a stream or a brook, which is where I would probably put a tiny house or something like that for mom. And I mean, the only thing I would need, and the way things look money wise, the only thing we would need is just mom to be a co-signer or something like that. And I don't know if we would. I don't think I would charge her any rent. The only thing I would ask her to do is pay her bill, her electric and whatnot bills, or a portion of the utility bill and whatnot for her tiny house. Otherwise, I mean, I looked at it, and without an FFA or anything like that, the current numbers for monthly mortgages well within me and Jerry's means. It's like a little over $900, and between what Jerry makes and what we bring in from YouTube, we would have no problem with it. The thing is, mom doesn't want to leave Rolla because of Carla, which, hey, I understand that. So it's like one of those things where it's like, honestly, if mom could help us with just the signatures and whatnot, it would be a lot less expensive on me and Jerry. And I don't mind driving half an hour or more to come see mom every so often. You know, it's like Sunday, I brought her Easter dinner. You know, her favorites, you know, mac and cheese, cornbread, and ham. You know, she loves that stuff. So I brought it over there. Maybe sometime this week I'll go back over there to get the one dish that was mine. But for the most part, most of it most of it was her dishes that she left here, and I didn't get around to taking them to her. So, it's kind of a win-win situation for them because her mom got some good dinner, and she got some of her it's not Corel, or is it Corel? I don't remember. I don't know. I remember the name of the particular type of dishes, but for as I'm concerned, Sunday was a really, this past Sunday was a really good day because of all the busyness with, cooking dinner and the fact that we slept in and, a breakfast, which, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even remember what we ate for that day. Oh, I decided I didn't want to have a large breakfast like we normally do because of the meal, the dinner. So I think Jerry had one of her yogurt parfaits, and I just ate the apple pie yogurts that I get, or was it tiramisu? It was one of the two. But everything was great yesterday. I didn't feel like anything bad was happening. But then today, a lot of things happened that were not exactly unhappy, but it was just kind of like, okay, certain people are showing their true colors with what they want, and I'm like, I cannot deal with trying to figure out my own desires for me and Jerry, let alone having a bunch of people who are either talking about divorce or trying to make Jerry look like a bad guy. And I know Jerry's not a bad guy because there's a lot of things that could have happened when we moved from New York to here that would have made us bad guys. I mean, before Mom got involved with a bunch of the negative Nillies, we could have robbed my mom blind, but no, we didn't. We didn't. And when we were out looking for houses for all three of us, because Mom agreed to move in with us, because I wanted her close by so I can watch over her. And this was a house that we found that was perfect for us because there was 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on one side of the house. There was the 2 bedrooms on this side of the house and a bathroom. Granted, this room and the room behind me, which was at one point in time one big room, until they put up this full wall. So there was no extras for me and Jerry. Mom agreed when I was working. Mom agreed to pay the mortgage, and that was it. Jerry and I were taking care of all the other bills: the phone bill, the utility bill, any bill for the house. Me and Jerry were taking care of while I was working. And there was time when Jerry was working too. She had a job. She had several jobs, while I had a job or 2. There was a point in time where I had 2 jobs and I barely got 4 hours worth of sleep in between the jobs, unless one of the jobs I had a day off and I could sleep in or go to bed early. The thing is, you guys think you know everything about us. From what? Videos? Pictures? You guys saw Jerry Ann the first time and made a snap judgment that she was lazy and ate just nothing but junk food. That's not true. That's not true. And because of my hair and whatnot, you made assumptions about me. And because of, yes, there were a lot of times when Jerry Ann and I were doing it on her live, and I was confused or was tired. And yeah, I had facial expressions that you either misread or just didn't understand. And I'm like, just because, for a while when I was in a Discord chat with certain people, that I was answering full sentences and talking like literally. But then I started getting to the point where it's like, it's the same shit. It's the same shit. I'm fine. I'm okay. There is nothing wrong. I am working to make myself happy. But when I started getting those red flags with a lot of the things that they were saying or showing me, and I was like, who's the narcissist? You know, the people who are trying to tell me how to live my life and how to deal with Jerry and get out of this relationship? Why? One of them had multiple failed relationships. You know? My mom, bless her heart, I love her to pieces. But I know of a time that I was not happy because mom had this boyfriend who was trying to kick me out of the house so my mom could take care of him and his 2 kids while he was basically a leech. Laid around, drank beer, said he was going to college so he can become a writer. And most of the stuff he wrote was like garbage. Made no sense. You know? And I've had a couple of stories. Never tried to publish them because they were my stories. They were for me. They weren't for the general populace. Now I know once things settle down and I start getting into a routine and do things that make not just myself but Jerry happy, I could sit down and easily start writing stories again. You know, I had several different characters and they were, well, one of them was a sci-fi like story. Another one was a fantasy story, a D&D type story. You know, I had my character, you know. Grey Wolf, half elf, archer, hunter, ranger type person with a pet wolf. You know, I had several other different characters that I could have thrown into a story, but I wanted it to be focused on around one character. You know, because sometimes it's hard to take multiple characters and put them into the same story without getting confused, you know. So, and then there was one time when I was living with mom, and I continued it when I was living with Jerry, I got into a group on, I don't know if it was the AOL chat rooms or what it was, but this was way before Discord. And we were texting, or not texting, but emailing each other what our characters were doing and how they were interacting with other characters, blah, 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 blah. And we all had our own characters, and our adventures kind of intertwined. You know, I wish I can find something like that. Maybe do something on Discord. Maybe I can find people from Discord to you know, be part of that again. You know, it's just, I've had my ups and downs throughout life, and I tell you what, and this is not a dig on my mom or anything like that, I have learned more either on myself after my dad died or because of Jerry and her father. Yes, mom let me go get the, you know, do the driver's license test and use her car to take the actual driving part of the test after the written part of the test. And the only thing I had trouble with was parallel parking. My thing is if you don't live in a city where you have to parallel park, how many people actually parallel park in this country or any other part of the world, except for maybe big cities in England, like London, that's a big city, or Edinburgh, Scotland, or Dublin, Ireland, or I can name off a whole bunch of cities in Germany. I mean, you got Bonn, you've got Frankfurt and Stuttgart and God. Well, Bonn was the capital of West Germany after the wall went up, and Berlin was split in half, but Berlin was still considered the capital of East Germany, if my memory serves me correctly. But still, I have to give more. I hate doing this, and like I said, it's not a dig on my mom, but I have to give more credit to Jerry for finishing my upbringing and sticking with me through the hard times as much as I've stuck with her. You know, this journey, the cancer journey alone proved a lot for me and Jerry. Because when she found out she had cancer and she had broken her leg and had that fixed and had all these tests and whatnot, she gave me an out. She said, if you don't want to be with me because I have cancer, I'll understand if you leave. No, I'm sorry. I did the whole Christian vow in front of a minister and God in a church. Granted, we were dressed in Renaissance age garments. But I took that vow. And I'm sorry, there are vows that I take very seriously because of my upbringing. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people think about upbringings and how people are raised and why they are the way they are. Well, I am the way I am because both my parents, when I was growing up, were very godly people. Very godly. When we were going to churches, when we found churches in our new locations, like I dislike Arkansas because of the way the people were back in the 70s. And how many times my mom nearly got into an accident because of somebody, not caring when they were driving. But my father was a Sunday school driver for the bus. And I rode with him on multiple occasions, and he kept everything in order. He kept all the kids and whatnot from being a wild child. And there are several times where he made threats that if they did not settle down and get quieter than they were, that he was just going to pull the bus over and drop off the bad kids. He wasn't going to deal with them. But everybody listened. My father we used to make a joke about my dad. We used to say that when my father stepped in a room full of people in conversation, that everybody, including E.F. Hutton, would shut up and listen. Just because of his demeanor. And he wasn't one of these like, I'm taking control of everything. It was just the way he was soft-spoken, for the most part, unless he got upset or somebody pushed his buttons the wrong way. Guilty. But most of the time, he was a quiet man his tone was one of those commanding tones where it wasn't harsh and barking orders or anything like that, but it was one of those, oh, what is he saying? People stopped to listen. We used to also joke that he could sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo if he wanted to, because that's how good he was in convincing people of things. Yes, granted, after he passed away, and I had many conversations with my mom and my aunt and cousins who lived in Arizona at the time, that, yeah, my father was a bullshit artist. He could really be he could bullshit into anything. Or out of anything if he needed an out. But when it came to family and that kind of stuff, there's no playing around. I think I've told you guys a couple of times, my, God rest her soul, cousin Debbie had a husband, whom she did have one kid who unfortunately also passed away because of COVID. But she had a husband, and they got married in the 80s while we were in Germany. And when we got back from Germany, we found out that he was a troublemaker. And my aunt and cousin, my Aunt Lee and Debbie, my cousin Debbie, asked him to take this guy in and straighten him out. This guy thought he was special, thought he was better than most people, if not everybody. My father helped him get a job at a gas station. Now, one night, I was left home with this guy. And he didn't do anything like bad or anything like that. But he did have like this higher than thou type attitude. And anyhow, my mom and dad went out to go have a night to themselves. And he went to the gas station to get gas. And it was the same gas station that he got a job for this guy. And the owner said, "Hey, what happened to your nephew? I mean, he hasn't been here in X amount of days." And my father went, "Well, thanks for letting me know." Well, they got home, they came home. No, they stayed out. They did their dinner and whatnot. They got home, and my dad was like, "Hey, George, how's that job I got you?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, it was a great job, blah, blah, blah," lying his ass off. And my dad said, "Oh, really? I just came from there." And the owner said, "You haven't been here for like a week or more." "Ah, he doesn't know what I've been doing, blah, 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 blah," putting on a show. And my dad said, "This is your last chance. You got a choice. Straighten up, start providing for my niece and your son, or you're out of the family." He was like, "Oh, you can't kick me out of the family. You have no right to kick me out of the family." My dad said, "Oh, really? I have every single right to kick you out of my family. That's my niece you're screwing around with, on. You're not holding down a job. You're not trying to be a provider for them. You're practically living free with my sister-in-law and niece." And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to kick your ass, blah, blah, blah." My dad was like, "Bring it." And the guy tried to do a roundhouse on my father. And my father grabbed him by the ankle, spun him around, grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and the seat of his pants, looked at my mom, didn't say nothing. My mom got up, opened the door, and my father threw this guy over a railing with a rose bush onto the front yard and basically said, "If I ever see you or hear about you being anywhere near my family, I'll have you in jail." And that's the last time we heard about it. Heard it from him until after my dad died, and my mom had to serve him divorce papers in jail. He was in jail for aggravated assault and B&E, breaking and entry. I'm nowhere as good as my dad. I couldn't lie to save my life. I could try to, but 9 times out of 10, there's certain tales that my wife learned. So I got to the point where it's like, I got to be honest with my wife. I can't be bullshitting. I can't be goofing off. I can't be trying to run off on her or any of that stuff. And yeah, I did try. And why? Because at that point in time, back in New York, I was not happy. And it wasn't because of Jerry. It was because of her brothers and her cousins and their kids. And I felt stressed out every day, not just because of the family, but because of the environment of New York, the constant noise, the constant traffic. Granted, the house we were living in, which my father-in-law got for a pretty penny because it was a demo house, so insulation sucked. Windows were thin, things like that. And that was back in New York. Now, yeah, here I was unhappy for a while because adjustment periods and trying to figure out who was who. And unfortunately, I'm an empath. And when Mom started getting unhappy after agreements and whatnot, and we always encourage her to speak her mind, tell us what's going on, whatnot. The thing I have problems with my mom is bullheaded. She's a Missouri mule. My father was bullheaded. He was a stubborn South Side Chicago, growing up in the 40s and 50s. So I was born stubborn. I was born 100% stubborn because I had two parents who were 100% stubborn. But one thing I do remember is my parents tried everything they could to work things out. Now, I'm more like my father in the sense of family. Family needs to be protected, watched over, taken care of. I also follow the Bible, but the Bible says for the wife to separate from her family and live with the husband's family. Now, I can't tell you when things started going south, but I can tell you it was definitely right around the time that Jerry got her cancer, and I was doing a lot for Jerry to take care of Jerry because of the cancer. My mom knows about the cancer. My mom knows it's real. In fact, I think because my mom told me, and I believe my mom, that she tried to tell you guys from the negative side the truth, that it is real. She's not faking it, but you wanted to ignore her. You heard from a third party a conversation with Jerry Ann and her one doctor who is basically the quarterback that deals with this cancer. You know, he's the guy who got Jerry to see a specialist in New York shortly after she broke her leg. You know, and she was in excruciating pain, and Jerry couldn't walk that well, and instead of riding in the front seat because of the pain, she was laying in the back end of the car on top of blankets and whatnot. And every so often when we were to go out and do stuff and then go through a drive-through, people would look back there and I'd be like, she's got cancer and a broken leg. So she can't really, you know, sit. You know, she had to have that leg straight. You know, and then she had got the TSL brace where everybody was making fun of her or making comments that weren't true. And I hated it because, yes, I got mad about the whole situation, but I understood it, even though I wish I had more help. My sister-in-law came down and helped for a while, and then she went back to Vegas for the holidays and ended up breaking her leg or some kind of injury that really kept her from coming back because she said she was going to come back. But I can only speculate a whole lot of different reasons why she didn't. And, you know, see, I know Jerry has rubbed people wrong in many different ways, including family members. I really think why her oldest brother and nephew have lost contact with her is because of me. Not because of her, but mostly because of me. Because her younger brother, before he passed away, basically did the same thing and said, I'll help you move to Missouri. And then once we got out here, it was like ghosted. We were being ghosted by him. Her one sister is busy with, you know, her life, her family. Another sister's busy with her spouse, who has various health issues that makes it hard for travel or stuff like that. I think she's got fibromyalgia or something like that because she's always in pain. The other sister, I don't know the ins and outs of why she doesn't want to come back out here or anything like that. Part of my problem with her when she was here was a lot of the foods that she made, I was not into. And now that I'm into the Nordic diet, I would love for her to come back out here and try one of my dishes, one of the Nordic dishes. She's not big into beef. I don't know if she's big into pork, but she used to make a lot of different chicken dishes. And, well, one of the dishes she made I wasn't into because that was before my my Nordic diet situation was she made something with curry. And I was like, ooh, curry, isn't that really like, harsh? A harsh spice? Well, when I started using curry to make my that one chicken wrap dish, I was like, oh no, it's more smoky than spicy. So that's what I did. And I learned from my own experience. Now, if, I don't want to say names, but if that one sister or even older daughter or daughters, any one of them, because they're all, one of them I think is still in her teens, but the other two are like, the oldest one is like almost in her 30s. The other one I think was in her lower 20s, or lower to mid 20s, and the third one I think is late teens, maybe early 20s. But I mean, I don't care how people feel towards me out of the family. They're in-laws. They're in-laws. You don't have to love them, but you have to at least endure. But I tell you what, other than her older brother, I love all of her sisters. I feel sorry for the one sister for losing a child to what they're saying is COVID, whatever. But for her younger son and middle son, who is now married and a father, the middle son is, they're young men. And I would love to part some of my wisdom, and let them either take it or leave it. And that's all I've ever tried to do, is part some wisdom from my brain. And people can either take it or leave it. I don't need negative comments. Jerry doesn't need negative comments. Mom doesn't need anybody to tell her anything. Okay? The whole situation with my mom is still upsetting, but I understand from her point of view. But I'm having trouble getting her to understand my point of view. And no, I did not want my mom here for her money or any of the bullshit people are saying. Granted, yes, I loved the help, but I never begged for anything from her. I've only asked, and if she said she could do it, and she decided to do it, so be it. We asked Mom to take care of the phone bill because I was out of a job. And Jerry was only getting X amount of dollars, and, yes, for a time we had extra money every so often to go out on a dinner date or to the movies, or dinner and a movie, but that was when, we had good money coming in, but people want to sit there and tell my mom that all we want from her is her money. No. A little assistance, yeah, but I don't want her to pay for me for the rest of my life. I don't ask my mom for anything that she is not willing to give. But what upsets me about this whole situation with my mom is a combination of people telling her things that, one, was not within their right. Two, it was distorting the truth of our family dynamics. It was, I am 99.9% sure that if we had done some of the things that we had talked about doing, me, Jerry, and Mom, to insulate, soundproof, give her her own environmental system, she probably would have been fine staying here. She probably would have been fine. But nobody wanted to jump into the pool. I was standing there going, okay, when are we going to do this stuff? When Mom acted like she didn't want to. Jared was doing the research and finding prices and information. But by that time, the negative Nellies got into mom's head and got her ear and poured bitter sweets in her ear and used forked tongues and vinegar. And because I know my mom would not have jumped up and moved out of this house as quickly as she did until she knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jerry Ann and I could deal with the bills, the mortgage and the phone bills and all that other stuff. Granted, we did lower our phone bill. We did lower some food bill. So the only thing we had to deal with was the mortgage, the utilities, and the phone bill. You know? But y'all think we can't do it. I've already seen numbers saying that. Yeah, we're good until at least June, maybe until July. It depends on how different things go. You know? There's a lot of things that are happening in this house that you guys don't know about because I don't talk about it. But I will say this much. What I do know and what I have seen, yeah, we may be able to buy this house pretty soon. Buy it from mom for a decent cost. You know? Find out what houses in this area are worth or rated. Maybe we'll be able to buy it for that much. But that's between me, mom, and Jerry. And I really, really wish a lot of you would just leave us alone. Stay out of our business. Okay, you're all happy for mom. Great. Be happy for mom. Just worry about yourselves. Worry about your finances. Worry about your family. Worry about things in your life. Quit worrying about other people. Because all you're doing is spending your time finding ways to gossip. Big no-no, according to the Bible. All you're doing is finding ways to mess with other people's lives. In my book, that's a no-no. That's why I don't go around trying to tell people how to live. I give them information. I offer up advice because of my experiences with learning disabilities. I don't sit there and go, oh yeah, Diane's whomever is back on the or off the wagon or whatever, however they call it. Does that do me any good? No. I'm not part of Diane's life. But you guys think you're part of ours just because we're on YouTube. Jerry doesn't have a negative or evil bone in her body because if she did, there's so many different things that could have been done or said that would definitely throw us out of the good graces of God. I could have spent half my time, instead of doing positive things, looking at Diane's life, her past and whatnot, or anybody else's that is attached to Diane or has said bad things about us. I could criticize a number of different people for some of the things that they've done that are part of Diane's circle. You know why I don't have friends? You know why I don't have circles? Because, one, I don't need negative people acting like my friend, but in truth are just using me to get information to go create negativity behind my back. The friends I had when I was younger and you know, being raised within the military. What the heck is that noise? I don't know. The thing is, and when I was growing up in the military, it was great. It's great. I had friends. Granted, every 3 years I'd have to find new friends because, you know, unfortunately in the military, it's like, yeah, you got to move. It's time for you to relocate. How many times have I relocated in my life? Let's see here. Philippine Islands. I don't know if I was alive, but I'm going to say Utah, Arkansas, Little Rock specifically, Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Germany. 1, 2, 3, 4 different places in Phoenix. So I've probably relocated 10 times in the entirety of my life. This is the third place I've ever lived longer than 3 years. Yeah. And I can't even count how many times Mom moved around after I was born here in Missouri. But yeah, I relocated several times here in Missouri, so maybe 15 times I relocated to a different neighborhood or a different house or a different part of a city. And I'm not even counting relocating. No, I am counting relocating because let's see here, Arizona. We got there in '83. Mom and I moved out in '94 or '95. Lived here in Missouri, even though it was 4 different places. No, I'm not going to count my aunt and uncle's place, but 3 different places here in Missouri between '94, '95 to 2000. And then from 2000 to 2013, New York. Then Sandy came along, and Diane and I relocated here to Missouri to be with Mom in 2013. And the thing is we could have tried to stay in New York after Hurricane Sandy until we could have found a place to live, or just lived in that little itty bitty apartment with built into a group home that she was working at. But I was unhappy. I had to take a bus to and from work. That was a good hour and a half every day. Actually, if you count it totally, it was probably about 2.5 to 3 hours each day to and from work. Except for maybe the 2 days I was off. And the thing is, there was multiple times that I nearly missed my stop because I fell asleep in the bus to work or from work. And the thing is, if I did not catch a certain bus on time from work, it would have dropped me off in like Hempstead or up by the mall, which wasn't too far to the group home. But there was a couple times I had to call my wife to have her come and pick me up by the mall because the last bus that I should have stopped running at a certain time. I hated that. It's one of the reasons why we didn't stay as long, was because I was so uncomfortable and so just like did not like my life after Hurricane Sandy. Then we moved here and things were a lot better. But the thing is, I'm not doing lives anymore because of all the negative nillies, and doing blogs, I can at least get rid of or delete the negative comments or the anonymous persons. Because I don't care how long you've been on YouTube, it's your negative attitude or your negative comments I don't want to deal with no more. Jerry don't want to deal with them no more. I think Mom doesn't want to deal with them anymore, but she's gotten sucked into listening or watching or being a part of the negative crowd. And I am extremely disappointed in her, because up until those people got her to listen to them more than me, her own flesh and blood, really started pissing me off. Because it's like, I am pretty sure what was happening was I would talk to my mom about various ideas. And she would say something to the negative crowd, and they'd be like, oh, don't listen to him. You know, he just wants you there for money, or he just wants you there because he just, can't deal with, being an adult. Or, and I'm like, really? Really? I can't be an adult. Well, if it wasn't for Jerry Ann and her father in New York, I probably could not hold down a job for more than a month or two. Not 3, not 4, not even 5 years. I was doing better in the job department when I moved to New York. Yeah. I was doing better in a lot of different ways, thanks to my father-in-law, God rest his soul, and Jerry Ann, and even her sisters. I didn't want to be a moocher. I did not want to not have a job after I got married, because I was taught I was supposed to be the breadwinner, no matter how I hated my job. And the thing is when the job got to the point where it was too negative, too full of problems, I would at least make sure I had another job that I was going to before I quit the other job. Yeah. Did the same thing here. I had 2 really good jobs that I really enjoyed going to because of people. I had camaraderie. I could call them friends if I dealt with them or knew about them or knew anything outside of work. I could have called them friends. The first one, the first one, was working at Taco Bell at night, overnight at Taco Bell. But then they moved me to the daytime because they wanted me to get familiar with daytime and the transition from breakfast to lunch, dinner. I worked just about every part of Taco Bell. But my favorite part was either working in the drive-thru window or making the tacos, making the burritos, putting the food together to serve to the people, because I really loved doing that. But I had to have somebody make an accusation and try to fire me, and I was like, you can't fire me until you show proof of me doing something wrong. But if you don't have any proof, you can't really fire me. It's against labor laws. You have to have an excuse. And the woman who was the district manager was the one who wrote it up. I never got to talk to her, never got to see the so-called proof. And I didn't really sign the paperwork to be fired. I just said I quit. But because they already had the paperwork made up, they could hold it against me. And I didn't care. Because if I'm going to be accused of something and you can't prove it, you're not worth working for. You're not. And then the second one was Price Chopper. It was basically the same thing. Somebody had a grudge and decided to write a note and give it to management. Management used that to fire me. And I said, look, somebody's note doesn't mean shit. I can write down a fucking note on all the different people I think shouldn't be working at that job. But I didn't, because I don't have it in me to do that kind of stuff. So when they took me into the manager's office and I had my work shirt, the only thing I had over the work shirt or under the work shirt was a hoodie. And I had already taken it off and put it in the back with some of my extra work equipment. And I said, you need better proof than a note. Note barely holds up in a court nowadays. But they said that they had proof. That cameras caught it. And I said, where's the proof? Let me see it. Oh, we can't pull it up. It's in our data bank. I said, well, until you can pull it up and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I did something wrong, technically you can't fire me. Missouri labor law, you have to have evidence. 2 places that said they had evidence but didn't want to show it. Said they didn't have to. That's bullshit. So I looked at him and said, well, if you're not going to pull up evidence or anything like that, I quit. And I took off the work shirt in that office, threw it on the desk, walked to the back of the store for my hoodie with no shirt on. Put my shirt up and I yelled as I was leaving, free stuff in my locker, because I took my lock with me. You know what I found out from friends? That 2 weeks later she quit or got fired, one of the two. And I also found out from the deli manager. He was like, I regret firing you. I should have fought to keep you. But she had this note. And I was like, well, did you have video evidence? He said, not enough to show you touching her. I said, yeah, because when I walk by people, by the slices up front where everybody can see me, my hands are up in the air. Behind my back so I can't touch anybody. Because I don't want them to get hurt using the slicer. Or make a big old mess trying to scoop salad out of the display case. 2 perfectly good jobs. And the thing about Taco Bell, they were ready to start training me for shift lead, to be management. Because everybody saw my qualities. Everybody saw how good of a worker I was and how diligent I was of making sure customers had everything they ordered in their bags, had their drinks, the straws. I even asked them if they needed napkins or what kind of salsa. You know, the guy that I considered a good friend who ended up, I don't know if he's not working there or not, or working at a different Taco Bell or a different position, but he was the general manager of that store. And I considered him my best friend. But the thing is what I should have done. Should have ripped up both of the, definitely the Taco Bell papers that they wanted me to sign. I should have just ripped them up and said, well, Gatton. And that's what we called them. I said, it's up to you. Do you want me to continue working here? Or do you want me to just walk off? And he was like, well, there's nothing I can say. The district manager said anything. I said, I don't give a damn about that bitch. I don't give a damn. You're the general manager. Stand up for your people. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, you don't want to stand up. You're not a manager. You're just another puppet in the cog of Taco Bell's franchise. Did I stop eating Taco Bell? For a while. Do I want to continue eating Taco Bell? Too expensive. I'd rather get the products here in my house and do it my damn self. I can take ground beef and make taco meat. I can take chicken and make it into that chicken fajita type stuff that they used for different tacos. Do I worry about people? No. If you're my family, you're my family. I'll worry about you. If you're in my corner, I'll worry about you. But like it says in the Viking, a lot of different Viking themed wording. If you're with me, stand beside me. If you're against me, run. I will defend the weaker elements of my family or whomever I think I should be defending. And I don't care if it stresses me out to the point it causes a heart attack or anything like that. But I'm just done with all these people who want to influence my mother in a negative way or speak negatively towards my wife. If you want to talk about me, it's fine and dandy. 9 times out of 10, I'll probably laugh because you don't know jack about me. So you shouldn't be talking about me unless you just want to find yourself on a one-way trip to Hades. You know, you shouldn't be talking about Jerry because you don't know Jerry. You don't know her past, and you don't want to believe what I tell you. And my mom does not know enough about Jerry's past to really say anything negatively towards Jerry. But you all have the gall to make fun of my wife, to use my mother against me, to try to tell me how I should live and deal with Jerry. You want me to walk away from her. You'd say, no, we don't. We don't want you to separate. Bullshit. I heard it from Lisa. I heard it from Fox or Joni or whatever she wants to say. And Carla. Carla, who's my mom's best friend and should be treating me like a best friend and treating my wife with some dignity and respect. Carla said she hates Jerry Ann. Well, that's a strong word. There's a lot of things I hate, but it's not people. Because as far as I'm concerned, saying that you hate a person, and yeah, I might have said it towards Trump, but to hate a person, especially when you don't know them, all you see is video clips. You don't know their history, their past, their family, their upbringing, any of that. To sit there and go, I hate that woman. I feel sorry for you, Carla. I really do. I don't care how Christian you think you are. To be filled with such negativity towards a person that you literally say, I hate them. That's more damning towards you than the person you say you hate. That's why I don't talk about politics or Trump anymore, because my opinion is my opinion. And I'm not going to get into an argument or a discussion of any kind about politics or Trump and Musk and all them. You know, I really feel that we're in the end times and we need to get our asses back on the right track. Stop with all this negativity and hate and spreading rumors or lies or twisting other people's words or using other people against other people, especially when you get into a family. To do what you've done between Mom and I because of your feelings towards Jerry is just downright spiteful and evil and the fruits of the devil. Or fruits of the devil, not fruits. But the thing is, in the long run, it won't matter. It won't matter what you say to me. It won't matter what you say about my wife or what you do to my mom to keep her from listening to me. Because in the end, what's going to matter? When the band upstairs decides to weigh your soul against a Christian golden standard, which unfortunately every single one of us has failed to keep or uphold in this day and age. I have a feeling there's going to be more people left behind to live through Armageddon. So I'm sorry for those of you who are filled with negativity. I'm sorry for all those of you who want to be spiteful, want to literally break every single commandment the Bible has ever put out from the Old Testament to the New Testament. You say you're Christians. You don't act like it. You don't sound like it. You're mean. You're spiteful. You're judgmental. You're people living in glass houses throwing stones on your own house. I think a lot of you need to stop going to a building, a church building, and get together in a house full of true believers and relearn your Bible and start living the way the Bible wants us to live. And I know that's very hard to live a life without anger or without displeasure or with negativity. I lived with my mom a very long time before I got married, and I never realized how negative my mother could be towards another living soul until my wife and I moved out here. And even more so when she started listening to people like Diane and Joni, and even, I'm sorry to say this, Carla and her displeasure towards my wife. And far as I'm concerned, if Carla cannot respect my wife because she is my wife, she's no friend of mine. Because I can find all kinds of faults in her thinking and sitting there saying that she's a Christian, and then have this negative outlook towards another person. And if you don't like the way I choose to live, even with your, oh, she's manipulating him, or he's being reprogrammed, or she's controlling him somehow, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You know why I didn't last in the Army? It wasn't just because of my physical health. It was because I realized I hate people who think they have authority over me to tell me what to do or how to live my life. And I don't judge any of you for your decisions or how to live your life unless you're doing it negatively or you're influencing my family in any negative way or have negative attitude towards my wife or myself or my mother. That's when I don't like you. But you know what? I have this. I have these books, verses, chapters, verses, however you want to put it, to remind me how I'm supposed to live and what kind of person I should be. Yet I see so many people out there who don't even know how to live properly within the grace of God. All I see lately are people who want to stick their noses in other people's businesses and tell them how to live. That's the devil. My wife never told me how to live. She helped me learn how to live, but she never demanded how to live. She never has done the things that you people have done on a constant basis. Because only those who have evil in their hearts will want to try to control or demand how another person lives. And that's the way I feel about you people. You're not trying to help me learn how to deal with certain things, like the so-called narcissism you see in my wife, which I don't. If I don't see it, what's the problem? If I don't feel like she's trying to control me, what's the problem? If I don't feel like I'm being manipulated, controlled, or demanded of, then I don't see a problem. The problem is you, not me, not Jerry, you. You who want to demand what I do with Jerry. You who try to tell me what Jerry is doing when I don't see it or sense it. And I tell you what, right now, I have grown up with a very, very developed sense of right and wrong. My dad had taught me right and wrong. He taught me how to look for it, how to see it, and avoid it. You think I'm not? Well, it's because I don't see it. If I don't see it or sense it, what am I avoiding? Well, I think I know what I need to avoid. People who are demanding me to make a decision for them, not for myself. And I tell you this right now. Those of you who want to come here into my life, not knowing how I feel, and only seeing spurts or spats of unhappiness or displeasure, yeah, that's that moment. That's not every day. That's not a constant issue or happening. That's my problem. And that's my issue. Nobody else's. Okay, so what? I put it out there online, which I realize I should never do. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to put it in a place where only certain people will see it, and those certain people will be able to help me out and not diminish my wife, demand me to live a certain lifestyle or a certain way. Because nobody has the right to do that. That's God's job, not y'all's. And if you have a problem with the way I live or the way I see things, go talk to God. Don't try to come to me and demand shit. Because all that's doing is making me dislike you more. So if you want to be on my good side, try to lift me up. Try to lift my wife up. Quit making up shit. Quit using our words against us. Stop trying to make me see things that aren't there. And if you don't like that, well, again, that's your problem, not mine. Now, this video is already going up to an hour, and I do want to talk more about certain things. And those things are of a positive nature. Things that me and Jerry have been talking about. Things that me and Jerry have been working out. And certain decisions. Now, it is nobody's business but mine and Jerry's, or maybe even Mom's, but I'm still leery about telling my mom anything anymore because misunderstandings, wrong wording, stuff like that. And like I said, it's between me, Jerry, and my mom. And if my mom has trouble keeping it between the three of us, Mom have to think about certain things. Certain things I don't really want to do, but because of other people's influences and interference and stuff like that, and the way my mom looks so skeletal-like, whether you think she's fine and filling out, which I don't know where you're seeing that. I went over there Sunday, and I was ready to sit on her lap and force feed her food because the way she's starting to look, I'm very concerned because my grandmother started to look like that before she passed away. And when I looked at pictures of her before she passed away from my Aunt Sue or other family members, she looked the way my mom started to look, like a walking, talking skeleton, because she had stopped eating, and all she did was sit around smoking her cigarettes and drinking her Pepsi, and barely eating, or not eating at all, according to some family members who had found out that she wasn't eating. And I don't want that for my mom. I really don't. Because nobody should go that way. And I wonder, is she not eating because she's still stressed out by people? Is she stressed out because of the negativity? Because negativity will eat you up from the inside out. It will. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do what I think is right for my family. And if you have any say whatsoever, or try to get yourselves involved in something you should never have gotten yourselves involved, we'll see what a court of law will do. Because I'm done playing games. Because, as far as I'm concerned, nobody has a say in my family. Nobody has a say in my family. You want to be negative towards Jerry Ann? Get the fuck out. Because unlike Jerry Ann, I already know what's going to happen to me when I die. I've already foreseen it. And I don't care. I really don't. So if we want to get nasty, right now, since I don't have a job, I can sit and start researching, finding out information about people, using that against them. I have no problem with that. Because I know this. Everybody has a skeleton or two in their closet. So don't fart around with me. Really, don't fart around with me. Don't get your nose into my family's business. I've already got enough problems with hemorrhoids. I don't need somebody's nose up my ass. Or my wife's ass. Or my mom's ass. You know, I know what brown nosers is like, and pretty much everybody on Diane's side is just a bunch of brown nosers. You know? So, I mean, get your noses out of our asses. Go find somebody's ass that, you know, put your nose into. Or maybe focus on your family. Because I don't focus on any of you guys, but you're pushing. You're pushing me into a corner, and that's not a wise decision. I've had people push me in the corner, and they find out real quick how dangerous I can get. And I'm done with everybody's lying about my family. I am done with everybody poking their nose in my family's business, which includes my mother. I've known her for 50 years. How long have you guys known her for? 3 years? 4 years? What you know of us, what you know of this family is a drop in a bucket. And there's a desert out there that needs water. So why don't you take that bucket, fill it up with your water, your problems, your situations, and go water your desert. Because, put it metaphorically, not even a mustard seed wants to grow in your desert. So, get yourselves right with Christ. Quit bugging me. Quit bugging my mom. Quit bugging my wife. Our lives are none of your damn business. It's not. Because we wanted to get online and talk about our lives, our interests, show you, my wife showing you DIYs, me starting to show you cooking videos, which I want to get back to. That's all that's all we wanted to do. We wanted to educate, entertain, and have a good time. We didn't want or need any of the negative Nillies. People who are making judgments over my wife without even knowing her. And when we try to tell you about us and give you facts, you want to twist them around to your narrative? That's so, I mean, I can only guess from my days in Ozark Christian College, in my asking myself almost constantly, what would Jesus do? I am pretty sure Jesus would not want any of us doing what you guys are doing. He wouldn't want us to be fighting. He wouldn't want you guys to be negative or basically splitting a family apart or any of the stuff you guys try to do. Now, as for my people on my channel and my wife's channel, we love you guys. You guys really support us. And you help us out as best you guys can. And you follow your hearts and not make criticisms or falsehoods or stories or anything like that against us. I mean, yeah, I can be stubborn. And I have a hard time with a lot of different things. You know, you want to share stuff? Fine, share stuff. Just don't sound like you're trying to be bossy or controlling or demeaning or anything like that. I mean, when I decided that I needed to get back to Christ, there are certain things I still keep with me. My knowledge of herbalism, you know, my enjoyment of crystals, you know. Science has proven certain crystals do have their own power, their own, I mean, they learned a long time ago that you can take a quartz crystal and put it into a transistor radio and it will act like a power source. Yeah, that's a piece of quartz. And you tell me that crystals don't have any power. The rabbis during during Christ's time wore crystals that represent the different tribes of Judah or tribes of David or however they put it. You know, in the Dark Ages or Middle Ages, kings would put crystals on their crown to represent power. The thing is, what I've tried to tell you guys all the time, no witchcraft, but this is what I've tried to tell you all the time. Whatever was made by God, the crystals, the herbs, are good. They have a usage. Ancient Chinese used different colored crystals on your back to align chakra, the energy of your body, into a straight line. We know that a magnet, which is made from the earth, is a type of rock, can be placed on a compass to point true north. That's power. I've got a book here with 250 recipes of apothecary recipes using herbs and spices for various different issues the body has. Cinnamon. You can take either a cinnamon stick or powdered cinnamon, ground cinnamon, put it into a cup of hot water, stir it up so the water gets infused with the cinnamon, and drink that. Or even have the cinnamon bark capsules with powdered cinnamon in there. And that's supposed to help your blood pressure. Yeah. Chamomile is good for your nerves. Mint is good for your stomach. Chamomile and mint together helps with upset stomach, headache, nausea. I can go on. But my point is, we are doing things with our negative attitude and our making fun of people or lying about people or doing stuff to pull people down For what reason? It's not godly. It's actually evil. It's the devil's work if you looked at the Bible. So why do we do it? Why did God give us the ability to think for ourselves in our own consciousness and then take that gift from God and use it to do evil things, to say evil things? What's the purpose of it? To weed out the believers? To weed out the bad people? Why did he give us the ability to make our own choices? Yet he spoke to various biblical people to put his word into writing so we can read it. Granted, translating from the original biblical text to modern day English has had a lot of negative effects on the Bible itself because of various books or chapters or verses being removed from the Bible by mankind because of a king or a priest or a religious group or a race culture was afraid that if mankind during those particular times would get the idea that they can go against the established church, that there's more that God wanted us to know that the church took away so we wouldn't know about it. Or they just didn't want the Bible to be, one humongous book filled with godly knowledge. I don't know. It's an age-old question that theologists have been asking since the modern times, or since the modern times. Especially since we found evidence with the Dead Sea Scrolls that there's certain that we don't have all the information God wanted us to have. And I blame mankind. I blame religious zealots and over-righteous kings who did not want their people to have that knowledge and fear of the people revolting by the established norm. There's no normal. There's no such thing as normal unless it's a dishwasher or a washing machine. There is no true normal. The true normal comes from the book of the Bible. It comes from God's word. But people didn't want everybody to know all of God's words. So we have books out like the missing books of the Bible or the book of Enoch, which was never put in the original Bible, but it is a biblical text. People need to read the Bible more, and they need to find ways to understand the Bible more and not pick and choose what they want to believe out of the Bible, because that's already been done for us. Because if you're going to pick and choose what you want to believe out of the Bible, you might as well give that Bible to a local church. Donate it to the local library. Stop reading it, because you're doing exactly what the Catholic Church and the Church of England wanted to do or did back in their time. Now, I'm not bashing these two groups, these two religious groups. I'm bashing their decision of taking information out of the Bible as a context of the original word. Now, granted, the original text, the three languages that were used were different in various ways. You have Hebrew, you have Aramaic, and then you have Latin. Those three languages were created from their original writers. But the thing is, because Hebrew and Aramaic did not have proper nouns or did not use names or things that we're used to in our English, it got lost in translation. Now, the Latin, granted it's old Latin and it's still used in the Catholic Church. Anybody could take the Latin parts of the Bible and translate it into modern day English. Now, yes, they say that King James had the closest translation from the original text, but he did not use all the original information. He was the first one to take it out when he decided that he wanted to mass produce the first mass-produced Bible, which was called the Gideon Bible. There's a lot of arguments against Gideon, the first mass-produced Bible, and the man who did it. That's fine. Everybody has their faults. But guess what? There is no faults in the Bible. The Bible was spoken to from God to righteous men that God chose to write the Bible in its various sections or various points in time. It's fine. But the thing is, you cannot change what the Bible says. You can misquote it. You can decide to skip areas that you don't agree with. But you can't change the meaning of the Bible and the truth within the Bible. You can't. Yes, I spent a lot of my 20s and late teens researching and studying every known written religion and some that weren't fully written to understand not just my place in the world, but to understand the bigger picture that most people miss. And yes, the Bible is the keystone to all of it. It is the literal keystone to everything. And the thing that gets me is every known religion has an origin story, has a starting point. Not all religions, godly or pagan, are the same, but they have a basic origin story that sounds very much like the Christian biblical origin story. But I feel that a lot of the original, the original Genesis had been removed because they did not like the sound of the origin story that was originally put down in Aramaic. Now, I personally don't really care what your religion is. There are several religions that state that they're godly religions, especially Latter-day Saints and Mormons, because they want to follow the story of John Smith finding gold tablets in the desert of Nevada or Utah or wherever that was shown to him by an angel, and the angel said, God left these for you. No. The original tablets that were left to us, given to Moses and written by the finger of God, is the only tablets that we should be worried about or following or listening. And then take those 10 commandments and either leave them on the wayside, which is your choice, and follow the word and the gospel of Christ, because he was the new beginning. He was the child and Lamb of God, and he gave himself up to take upon all the sins of mankind, to be crucified on the cross, and 3 days later, his tomb was empty. Some scholars and theologists say that not only was the tomb empty, but the stone in front of the grave was split in half, and the other side of the stone and the interior of the cave looked like it was burnt by nuclear a power that nobody could explain or describe, but the interior of the tomb was blackened because the power of Christ's resurrection was so powerful, it left its mark on the tomb and the stone and caused the two soldiers to run in fear and having to lie to Caesar or whoever was in control of Rome at the time so they would not be put to death. So as far as I'm concerned, if you don't follow the story of Christ and his disciples and learn to live the good life and not pick and choose what you're going to believe out of the New Testament, then you are right with God. And if you ask for forgiveness, you're right with God. But you cannot half-ass the Bible and be right with God. You cannot half-ass the Bible and say that you're a Christian and your prayers for forgiveness are heard, because God will deny that. God will deny you for half-assing his word or picking and choosing what you want to believe in. That's why I believe that Mormons are not going to make it to heaven, because they're not telling the whole true story. They're telling the story of John Smith, not Jesus Christ. So I listen to Mormons and I go, how can you follow that line of rhetoric and have it start and focus on John Smith and then create a religion half based on the Bible and half based on a mortal man? That's why I don't understand Mormons or Latter-day Saints. It does not mean I shun them, but I don't see where they get their story. To me, what I've read in their Bible, in their book, is half-assed. It doesn't make any sense. But, I'm not going to go around trying to convince people who are so solidly stuck in their belief of mortal people being gods. I read enough about various different religions like Confucianism and Otism and Taoism and Buddhism to understand that, okay, yeah, these people that they worship did, according to their text, godly things. But even Odin spent a very, very long time walking amongst everyday men to learn things. And that was one of the things about Odin that I liked. He wanted to learn stuff. He wanted to gain knowledge via experience or communing with mankind. The whole Habanal, which is basically the book of Odism, speaks of different ways of living and walking their path, basically. That how much of it was taken from a different source? I don't sit here and go, Odin is the only way. No, because Odin died. He died. Christ has not. Christ is still alive. He's just not among us anymore. And I feel the day is coming soon, that he will return. And he will remove all sin, all evil. And he will renew the earth pure and holy. And the holy city of God will be amongst us on earth. And we will live amongst our believers and our God and Jesus. And I believe that when that happens, if you're still around, if you're still alive, the thing is going to return to the way God wanted it. And there's going to be a lot of changes. Not only physical changes, but changes in belief, changes in reality. Nobody will be speaking different languages. We'll all speak the same language. We'll be able to commune with God face to face, or at least Jesus. We may be able to speak to animals and hear their thoughts or their words. It is believed, because our brain only uses 10% of its maximum capacity, that the other 90% is stuff that we no longer know how to use because we've become too sinful. I believe that 90% has a lot of ability with PK, telekinesis, telepathy, empathy, levitation, whatever it is that God really put in there for us to be able to use to sense the truth, to see the truth, to understand all of it, that all of what God had done in biblical times and all the things that God wants from us as believers. And I pray that I could be one of those people, whether I'm left down here to live out Armageddon until the final day when God comes down and takes his children up from the dissolution and the sin of our current world. I hope and pray I'm one of the people that either gets to prove my belief in God, or maybe I've got enough belief in God that I am one of the 140, I don't know if it's 140 or 140,000, but the 144, not 40, 144, I'm one of those 144 that go straight up to heaven before the full onslaught of Armageddon, where the Antichrist is riding across the world with the 4 horsemen, destroying 1/3 or 1/4 of everything on the planet. Landmass, life, oceans, people, animals, everything we have. You know, and there was, I'm going to end this soon because this is almost 2 hours and I did not want to go over 2 hours, but this is where my head and heart is. There was a comedian, my mom would know who this is. His name was Mike Warnke. He was a Christian comedian. Granted, we found out he was not after, years of him doing Christian skits or comedy. And he said, and one of the things he said that I thought was really funny, but also kind of like I would love to do that too. And of course, I found out the truth about Mike Warnke. He said, I would love to be a Christian that is standing amongst sinners when the day all those that Christ plans on saving are bringing up to heaven before the final end. I want to be around I want to be around sinners, so I can grab one of each arm and go, okay, you want to repent now, or should I let you go? I'm sorry. If I saw the glory of God shining his holy light upon the earth to bring up those he wants to save before the final end, I am pretty sure if I saw something like that was so blinding that I could not see anything but a silhouette of what I perceive as Christ, as it shows in many different photos, or not photos, but paintings and whatnot, I would fall on my knees. And the song that plays in my head right now is called I Can Only Imagine. I mean, would I be dancing or on my knees? Would I remain silent or sing to him, sing his glory? I don't know. And that's why the song I Can Only Imagine, I'm getting goosebumps, I'm sorry. That's why the song I Can Only Imagine is so potent. There's another song that comes through my head too that's known as Reckless Love. I Can Only Imagine is done by Casting Crowns, I do believe. I can't remember the gentleman's full name, but I think his last name is Goki, who sings Reckless Love. And it talks about how no matter what a person has done, especially a person who repents or returns to Christ, but everything that we do, God's ahead of us. He knows what we're going to do, and he's there waiting and ready to either pat you on the back or give you a big hug or turn you in one way or another in the direction he wants you to go to. And maybe one day when I'm not worried about earning any money, I'll play those songs for you guys. I'll play both of them. I'll find a way to play both of them. But if you're somebody who knows Christian music and you know the songs, or you want to look those songs up and listen to them, the first one I was mentioning by Casting Crown, at least I think it's by Casting Crown, is the song called I Can Only Imagine. There's also a movie out based on that song called I Can Only Imagine, with the main artist of Casting Crown as the lead actor, which I didn't know he could act, but he did a really good job. The other one is called Reckless Love. And I wish I could sing it for you. Maybe one day I'll listen to the song on my tablet and sing the main chorus or the main part of the song. But the power of God is amazing, because no matter how much you want to resist it, and if you resist it long enough or you do something really bad against God, you might not feel his presence anymore. I know there was a time that I was so confused in my religion that I didn't feel his presence. And I can tell you now, with my decisions being my decisions and not being influenced by anybody else, and me being still enough and turning off everything that could be a distraction, I can feel his presence. Might not always hear his voice because it's a very still, quiet voice, but I can feel the presence. And like now, I'm starting to feel it, and I'm about ready to cry. And no, this is not a show. This is not me trying to convince anybody of anything. This is me. This is not some gimmick or some show or whatever you want to say about Jerry when she cries. But I will tell you this much. I hope and pray that anybody listening to this video either turns back to Christ and becomes a true Christian, or returns to reading their Bible from cover to cover. Or if you want to, since it's almost the middle of the year, start in the New Testament, read the New Testament, start back over in Genesis next year, depending on how quick or how slow you read. I know sometimes when I'm studying the Bible, I read it slowly so I can not only get word for word what the Bible is saying, but get the meaning behind the words. And I know from doing this in the past, every time I read it, I get a different personal feeling or personal meaning, but I don't distort it. my understanding of the words becomes stronger. And yeah, I know I'm not well versed in the Bible. I can't remember every verse or whatnot that I've read. But, or sometimes I remember the words, but not the location in the Bible. Like, I think this is from John 3:16. And maybe I just realized I don't remember the full word, all the words. But basically what I do remember is God gave his only begotten Son to free man, to free us from our sins. And when I think about that, when I think about those words, and I'm pretty sure Bluegrass Lover can give me the exact book, chapter, and verse and words. To me, that's one of those things that keeps me from being the bad person that I know I can be or could be because of the way my mind works. I can think of crimes that nobody would know I did it or would not be able to find any evidence of those crimes because I know too many ways of getting rid of bones, getting rid of evidence. And I live pretty close to hog country, and I don't mean just like a farmer, but I'm talking about the boars, the peccary, as they're called, or collared peccary, or something like that. Wild boars they're feisty. They got some sharp ass horns or tusks, and I've heard of stories of them going and getting pissed off at hunters and going up fearlessly and ripping the shreds out of the tires of the vehicles. And I would not want to be in boar country, as a lot of people call it, with no spare tires or one spare tire, because like I would be afraid to get out of that truck and try to hike my way to civilization, because you get them boars pissed off, and they'll shred you up right there and then, and leave nothing behind except for maybe your rifle or whatever you're carrying that they can't chew up like metal. You know, and I know even hogs on various hog farms and whatnot, they'll eat every inch of a body. Teeth, bone, hair, everything. And if you're lucky, you might get some sort of DNA from their feces, but by the time it gets through their system and gets pooped out, there is no evidence. There's no way of tracing any evidence, because that's how their stomachs dissolve the bone. You know, dissolve the hair. You might get a piece of cloth or anything like that, but it's so decomposed and damaged by the acids of the boar and whatnot. You know, I could be a very bad, sinful person, but my heart won't let me. You know, I can't bring myself to do harm to another person. I can barely let myself do harm to animals. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes those animals are better than dealing with humans, because, you know, they don't hide anything. If they don't like you, they'll let you know. They've got their way of letting you know. You know, if they love you, they're sensitive enough to know that you're hurting or you're upset, and they come and try to comfort you. Oreo does that all the time to both me and Jerry. She's literally the perfect pet for us. You know, yeah, I'd like to get a cat. But cats are, you know, very, very independent. They do have their way of showing affection and whatnot. The other thing that I thought about, because, you know, I thought it would be funny to get like a gray parrot or a cockatoo. Or is it teal? bigger of the two. You got a cockatiel, which is small, and you got a cockatoo that's big. I don't know which one is which, but some of the funny animal things that I've seen with these particular birds are hilarious. I love the one. I think it's a cockatoo. That cockatiel is the small one with the long tail. The cockatoo is the bigger. But this one has its own. It has a very large vocabulary, and it's funny to listen to it because and so does this one gray parrot that we watch. They can say hello. They can say I love you. Unfortunately, they can also curse, like the cockatiel. No, cockatoo. The big white cockatiel. Cockatoo. I'm gonna get these two birds messed up. The owner was playing hide and go seek, right? And as she was lifting the sheet up, the bird's head feathers would move, up and down. And then at the end, she throws up the sheet and disappears, right? And as soon as the sheet hits the ground, the little bird, this bird was like, "What the fuck?" And I thought it was funny. I know a lot of people don't want to hear their birds curse like that, but the timing and the wording was just like, yeah, if I was a bird or an animal that had some, because they've done it with dogs, and dogs will be like, what, looking all over the place for the owner. But there's a lot of ways we can have fun and commune in a positive way without bringing each other down. Unfortunately, there are too many people out there who have chose the latter and rather not be friendly or nice or courteous or kind or positive, which makes me go, has their life been so bad that it's become so negative that that's the only way they can be? And that's what I'm worried about my mom, because she might seem like she's in a good mood and whatnot, but she can be very, very negative. Now, like I said before, I thought of 1,000 different ways to make her happy and still be, on the same property. So I don't have to get in my car and drive. I might have to walk a couple of yards and whatnot, which would be good for my health and stamina and breathing and all that fun stuff. Or vice versa. Or get one of those mules, as they're called, for either one of us. Don't know. But, there's a lot of things that I have thought about that we can do as a family, and every one of us will still be happy. But either certain people have convinced my mom that she shouldn't do it because we would be relying on her for money. That's not true. If we can get that place in Salem, Jerry Ann and I can pay the mortgage and still have plenty of money for other things, for other bills and whatnot. And Mom would only have to worry about herself and her bills and her food. But no, everybody's like, oh no, they're doing it because they want your money. No, we don't. We've never wanted her money. We wanted to live together in harmony. We even told her when we first moved in, the only thing you have to take care of for us is the mortgage. And then when I lost my job, we asked her to take care of the phone bill. That's it. We took care of the bulk of the bills. If you want to consider number of bills, not how much each bill was. But we were probably paying the same amount of money Mom was paying for the mortgage and the phone bill that we were paying for food and utilities and cable and internet. So I don't get where you people think that we were using her for her money. We never were. We came in this with an agreement. And we agreed on this house. And we agreed on who would be paying what until I lost my job. We didn't need Mom's money. Not when I was working. Not when me and Jerry were working. We didn't need Mom's money. I was making $600+ from one of my good jobs. When I had two jobs, I was making almost 800+ when I was working 2 jobs. And yes, I did work 2 jobs. Either I was working Burger King and Price Chopper, or I was working Taco Bell and Price Chopper. So, unless you guys know your facts and know them as the true facts and use them to speak your mind about us, you have no place to stand. You have no standing about us. You really don't have any right to talk about us. You really don't. You know, if you're going to be negative, you should just worry about yourself. Because the way it sounds from what I hear just by listening or watching, you know, certain people's lives and being negative about us, I'm like, I would be taking that energy and my time to read, do research, take care of my family, take care of my house, and not worry about anybody else. You know, there's enough in life to worry about that you don't need to be worrying about another person unless that person happens to be a family member. And then you worry about them. But complete strangers? The only people I know of that worry about complete strangers in a negative manner are people who are just too messed up in their own lives or in their own heads that they have to make themselves feel better by talking negatively about somebody else. It's the only people I know that talk negatively about somebody else. Now, if certain people either don't have grandkids or children and they have nothing better to do in their lives, I'm sorry for you. Because, I mean, if I had taken the time as a young adult to focus and harness my energy and my mind on what I knew I could do or felt I could do, I would either have a job as a park ranger at any one of the various parks around this country, or be working in the zoological department at a zoo. Most likely wolves or bears or bald eagle or, you know, animals that I liked. You know, or be in the kitchen where I was cutting up and prepping food for the various, you know, zoo animals. You know, or taking my time cleaning up an exhibit or a group of exhibits, that kind of stuff. But I didn't take my time to do that. One of the biggest reasons why is because I was afraid that my my learning disability and my difficulty with anxiety when it came to testing. You know, it's not a lot of colleges, not a lot of places will let you take a test on your time, not based on a clock that everybody else has to use. You know, I would have enjoyed any one of those jobs, but once I got to New York and finally got that one job at that one store, Stop and Shop, and meeting the people I met and working with the people I worked with, between the younger kids is what I'm going to call them, because they were a good 15 years younger than I am, maybe more. Talking about various things, my experiences as a military child, my experience in Yellowstone National Park, you know, my love for video games, that and my supervisor she was a big help for my attitude, my work ethics, the whole 9 yards. And I already had a good work ethic. I just had a problem with people. So when I got into a job that I really enjoyed and the people were friendly and good and not harsh or backstabbing or anything like that, I really enjoyed my jobs. I mean, if we had stayed in New York, in the Long Island region, where I could have, if we could have moved closer to my original job at Stop and Shop instead of trying to transfer to a different Stop and Shop, I could have easily gotten into management there. You know, I could have gotten involved with not only management, but I mean, I was already involved with most steps. You know, I was involved with the catering process and making sandwiches. I was involved with the kosher foods and the slicer for the kosher foods and the rotisserie oven and the making, you know, the presentation of the salads and all that stuff. I even remember her name. Don't have her number anymore, but her name was Claudette. African American woman, very nice, very friendly, very open. For anybody who treated her with dignity and respect and not be negative or what's the word, belligerent or bigoted towards her or her family. And I had an African American manager or supervisor for the deli department. And even though I didn't quite see eye to eye to him, I didn't have any problem with him because for the most part I dealt with Claudette. You know, but I don't understand why people have the attitudes that they have towards other people because of their differences, their looks, their weight, their religion, their ethnic background, their disability of one form or another, whether it's physical or mental. And I don't know if they have any grudges or anything like that towards people with physical disabilities because it's physically obvious that they have a disability, but the disabilities I have are psychological, they're mental, they're not seen physically. And so it makes it harder for people to understand people who have psychological disabilities that are not visible. And I've been dealing with that all my life. And I don't care what other people think on that spectrum or in that area because, you know, not everybody can show their disabilities or their pains or anything like that. And I am me. I am who I am. And I don't expect anybody to try to change me. I don't expect anybody to try to point out problems in my life or my relationship, marriage, whatever you want to call it. It's not your department. If I'm happy where I'm at, and if my wife is working with me for our happiness, let alone her happiness or my happiness, that's not your place to judge. Nor is it your place to point out faults of any kind about either one of us. If I'm happy, why are you trying to make me unhappy? You know, I get unhappy not because of Jerry. I get happy because of situations. And when my mind works clearly enough, I can sit down and talk to her and we can work it out. And we've done that several times. But the thing is, most of you, from the negative side of the fence, want to see nothing but the negative side, the bad side of the relationship, the bad side of the marriage, the bad side of Jerry. I have my bad side too. Why aren't you pointing that out so we can fix it? You're not. You want to just be mean and rude and sarcastic and negative towards my wife. You want to use your negativity and your sarcasm and your problems that you have with Jerry, with my mother, and try to convince her that we're the bad ones, not you for pointing it out, because the only people who will point it out are people who don't want to see happiness amongst two people or a family. Now, I have my people on my channel and my wife's channel who do point out a lot of things on both sides of the fence between me and Jerry. And I appreciate that. You know why? One, they're being nice about it. Two, they're being gentle about it. Three, they're not being harsh about it. I've had many people say, hey, Jim, you were a little harsh with Jerry. Maybe you should apologize. Or, hey, Jim, I understand you were mad, but you didn't have to bring it, online. Or, hey, Jim, I'm noticing that you're having an issue or two. Here's how I think you should deal with it, or how you need to work on it for yourself. They're not being, oh, Jerry's a narcissist, you should watch out for this, she's trying to control you, blah, 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 blah. You see her trying to control. I see her asking me to help her with stuff. Or a lot of times she'll be like, if you feel up to it, can you do me a favor? You don't see that. You cause problems between me and Jerry, and then when we bounce back and hit you back with your own attitude, you want to try to play the victim and call Jerry Ann a narcissist, a control freak, has a bad attitude. Because you don't like it being thrown back in your pretty little sarcastic faces. And because of that, you want to make my wife look like the bad guy when you're the one who's the bad guy. It's the way you talk to us. It's the words that you use in certain manners that comes across as being negative and rude. If you're not trying to be negative or rude to me, you should be trying to do the same thing to my wife. Because what you do to my wife affects me. And then I get uppity and mad, and that affects her. Then everybody becomes the bad guy. It's the ripple effect, the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it. But you're the ones causing the issues. You're the ones causing the negativity. You don't care what her history is. You don't care what her story is. You don't care about anything about her. But you want to turn around and say that you care about me. I'm going to call out bullshit. Because if you don't care about my wife, you don't care about me. And if you're going to use my wife against me or against my mom, you don't care about any of us. All you want to see is what you want to see. You want to see mom happy and whatnot. Great, you got that. But you manipulated her to evacuate this house before an agreed point in time, which was 30 days. And no, she did not give us 30 days. She barely gave us a month. Not a month. She barely gave us 20 days. We still didn't have anything worked out. And that was the thing. 30 days or as soon as everything's worked out. Terry and I didn't get that. So she got what she wanted for money to move into this place where she is paying almost 3 times as much as if she would have stayed here. And even if she stayed here and took care of all our bills, which I don't want her to do, she still would not be paying as much as she would there. She is now house poor, literally. And I hate every single one of you for it. Every single one of you who convinced her that she should try to move out instead of work with her son and daughter-in-law to do the things that we knew would have worked to give her side of the house, better insulation, better soundproofing, her own ductless heat air conditioning, thicker windows, insulation in all the walls. We already moved the dog to the front yard that faces out towards the street, towards the Richard Drive, so she wouldn't hear the dog bark. But the thing is, we're surrounded by dogs, so which dog is annoying her the most? Oreo or all the different dogs from the neighbors? I got 2 dogs there, I've got 1 dog there, I've got 1 dog there, I've got 1 or 2 dogs 2 to 3 houses down. I've got 2 dogs catty corner from us, and then 2 more dogs across, like next door to one of the neighbors. We've got dogs in all this surrounding us. So which was more of a nuisance? Oreo, who barely barked, or all these dogs around her that she can hear because she doesn't have proper insulation on the other end of the house? And that's why the other end of the house is cold, because it did not have proper insulation. Because the person who put this house together, he was a contractor, not an architect, not a builder. So he knew how to make things work without having to do all the things he should have done. But you want to convince my mother it's me, it's Jerry, it's Oreo, it's us mooching off of her, which we never did. So you know what? Take that attitude of yours that you used to split my family apart and shove it up your rear end. Have a good night.